Have you ever looked in the mirror and felt like you're no longer the person you used to be? That face is still yours, but it doesn't feel familiar anymore. Time seems to have quietly taken parts of your youth, your energy, and the closeness you once had with others. And sometimes you wonder, am I just getting older? Or am I slowly being left behind by the world? And then there are those quiet moments when you realize the people who used to be close have drifted away. Not out of anger, not because of any one thing. They're just busier now. Life has moved them into a different rhythm. And you're still here, in the quiet space between fewer phone calls, meals without laughter. You ask yourself, have I stopped mattering? And maybe the hardest question of all is this: after everything, will anyone still remember me? The home you built, the job you poured your heart into, the stories you told, will they all just fade with time? Will they be forgotten, like they never even existed? If you've ever had thoughts like that, please know, you're not alone. And more importantly, you don't have to fight aging. The Buddha taught that suffering doesn't come from growing old, it comes from resisting change. Aging isn't the end, it's a transformation. Not about losing yourself, but about living more deeply, more gently, more freely. In this video, I want to share with you 6 compassionate and wise Buddhist truths, not to help you cope with aging, but to help you walk with it peacefully and with dignity. We'll move through each lesson like small candles, lighting the path ahead. And maybe, just maybe, by the end, you'll see that aging isn't as scary as you once thought. In fact, it might be the most profound chapter of your life. Let's begin. 1. Your body will change, but that doesn't mean you've lost yourself. Have you ever sat down to tie your shoes and suddenly realized it's no longer easy? Have you climbed just a few stairs and had to pause to catch your breath when once you could run up 3 floors without even thinking? The body, that old friend you trusted for so long, who carried you through youth and adventure, now feels like it's turning against you. Your knees ache, your back complains, a good night's sleep becomes rare. And some nights, you wake up and feel like you've been left behind by your own body. But has it really turned against you? Or is it simply being honest, following the natural law that the Buddha called impermanence? There was a woman, around 60, who came to a retreat for older students in Northern California. She said, "It feels like this body isn't mine anymore. Everything's slowing down. I feel like I'm living inside a stranger." The monk didn't answer her right away. He simply handed her an old clay pot with cracks on its surface. And then he asked gently, "This pot used to hold water. Now it leaks. But look at the ground around it. The water that escaped has made the grass green. So tell me, is the pot still valuable?" She was silent for a moment, and then nodded, with tears in her eyes. And the monk said, "Your body is the same. It's no longer perfect, but it's carried you through so much. It's taken pain for you. It's protected you. If it's slowing down now, that's not betrayal, that's a reminder. Walk slowly, live more deeply. Your body is not your enemy. It's your lifelong companion. Tired, maybe, but never disloyal. It's walked with you through childhood scrapes, fevers, heartbreaks, hugs, sleepless nights, joyful moments, and deep loss. It's carried so much for you quietly. So when it gets weaker, why blame it? In the Dhammapada, the Buddha said, "This body is full of suffering, sickness, and bones. But when we understand it as impermanent, not truly me, we stop clinging and we stop blaming." In other words, the pain doesn't come from the aging body, it comes from expecting it to stay the same. And once you let go of that expectation, you'll start to look at your body with more compassion. You stop forcing it to be who it used to be. You start listening to it more. You feel grateful for each breath. You begin to treat it like an old friend, not a battlefield. A man once told me during a retreat in Colorado, "I used to treat my body like a machine. I'd run marathons, work 15-hour days, climb mountains. Now, if I can sit down and stand back up without pain, I'm happy." And then he smiled softly. "I've stopped running, but I'm learning to walk slower and see deeper." Aging doesn't take away your freedom. It just teaches you a new kind of freedom. Not the freedom of physical strength, but the freedom of letting go. Not, "I can do everything," but "I deeply appreciate everything I can still do." Maybe you can't dance anymore, but you can sit quietly beside someone you love and hold their hand. Maybe you can't carry heavy groceries, but you can carry a warm cup of tea and listen to your grandchild's story. Maybe you can't hike up a mountain, but you can walk mindfully through the garden behind your home and hear the wind, the birds, and the stillness of your own heart. So if your body feels tired today, don't be too hard on it. Place your hand gently on your chest. Feel the heartbeat still there. Instead of asking, "Why isn't my body like it used to be?" try asking, "Have I been listening to my body lately?" Or maybe, "What can I thank my body for today?" Aging is not the end of vitality. It's simply the moment you stop fighting the old version of yourself and start becoming friends with who you are now. Remember this: the body may be tired, but the mind, the heart, can still shine. And when the heart lets go of frustration and begins living mindfully, it shines with a light, not from muscles, but from wisdom, from peace, from understanding. And as you begin living that way, softer with your body, gentler with your breath, you might notice something truly beautiful. You haven't lost yourself at all. You've just begun coming home to the truest part of who you've always been. 2. You'll witness many goodbyes, but love never really leaves. There's something no one really tells you when you're young. The longer you live, the more goodbyes you'll have to say. Not the kind of breakups filled with tears and late-night texts, but the kind that never get a response. The kind where you walk someone you love all the way to the edge of life, and this time, they don't come back. Getting older brings a silence, the kind that no noise can fill. An empty chair at dinner. A phone number still saved, even though no one picks up anymore. A habit you still keep, even though the person you used to share it with is no longer here. No one teaches you how to live through this. There's no class in school called How to Keep Going When Someone You Love Dies. You only learn by living it and hurting. But in the Buddha's teachings, there's a quiet, powerful truth. Love doesn't die. It just changes form. A woman once came to a meditation retreat carrying a photo of her late husband. They'd been together for over 40 years, and when he passed, she said, "It felt like half of me left with him." She didn't say much throughout the retreat. She just sat there, eyes far away, as if having silent conversations with someone no one else could see. On the final day, she walked up quietly and whispered, "I still hear him in the way I pour tea. I still see him in the roses outside our window. I realized I didn't lose him. I just can't hold his hand anymore." Because when love is real, when it's been built on truth, trust, and care, it doesn't vanish. It stays. It lives in the way you love others. It echoes in the phrases you find yourself saying. It shows up in the way you listen to someone who's hurting, or the softness in your voice when someone's had a long day. The Buddha once said in the Samyutta Nikaya, "There is no one in this world who hasn't faced loss. just as no one escapes death. But when the mind holds love with mindfulness, that love transcends the body. That kind of love doesn't need a body to exist. It doesn't need a house, a conversation, or even a hug to feel real. A father who has passed can still live on in the way his son now raises his own children, with quiet strength, a gentle hand, and the rule, never raise your voice when you're angry. A mother who's gone might still appear each time you make her favorite soup. And somehow, you still hear her voice in the kitchen. Even when you're cooking alone, you don't need to get over the loss. No one really gets over it. Loss isn't a mountain you climb and leave behind. It becomes part of the landscape of your life. Some days warm, some days foggy, and some days it'll hit you so hard your chest goes still. But what you can do is keep walking, not as if they never existed, but as if they're still walking beside you in every good thing you carry forward. Many older Buddhists have told me that after losing a spouse, a child, or a parent, they didn't want to love anyone again. The fear of another loss made them close up. They'd say, "I don't want to love anymore. Losing someone hurts too much." But over time, through mindful practice, they came to understand. That's not how you protect your heart. That's how you starve it. Because love itself doesn't hurt. It's the clinging to how love used to look that causes pain. If you can open your heart again, not to replace someone who's gone, but to keep loving as a way of living, then love becomes deeper, steadier, and less frightening. Because now, you're not loving to hold on. You're loving to be alive. There's a beautiful line in Japanese Zen. When you pour tea from a cracked cup, the water spills, but the fragrance stays soaking into the earth, carried by the breeze. Love is like that. Even when it no longer holds its old form, it's still here, in the air around you, in your memories, in every small, kind thing you do each day. Remember this: no one truly disappears once they've loved and been loved. As long as you carry that love in your heart, they're still with you, not in the same shape, but in a new kind of presence, walking with you as you continue on your path. 3. Not everyone stays, and that's okay. There's a quiet truth that aging teaches us, not through books, but through quiet afternoons without phone calls, and the familiar names that slowly disappear from daily life. At some point, you start to realize people who once played an important role in your life have gently slipped away, not necessarily gone forever, but no longer a part of your everyday. Like birds that once flew across your sky and have now found new horizons. Someone who used to call every week now just sends a holiday message. Someone who once shared afternoon tea with you has moved to a new city, a new rhythm. And some people, without any drama, without any real reason, just aren't around anymore. And often, the first thing we do is blame ourselves. Did I do something wrong? Am I still important to anyone? Why was it so easy for them to walk away? But the truth is, most distance doesn't begin with fault. It's simply the natural result of a quiet current called time. Everything in life has its season. And more importantly, it has its timing. During a Dharma talk in New Jersey, a woman in her 60s asked, "What did I do that made my best friend of 20 years just disappear without a word?" And the answer was, maybe she didn't do anything at all. Maybe that friend had simply fulfilled their role in her journey. And now, it was time for them to walk their own path. The Buddha once compared life to a flowing river. Each person is like a droplet. We travel together for a stretch. Then some turn left, some right, and some simply evaporate. Not because they didn't matter, but because everything in life arises from conditions, and those conditions change. There's no holding on forever. So our task isn't to keep people at all costs. It's to cherish those who are still here, even if it's just a grown child who still calls, an old friend who texts you on rainy days, or a neighbor who always smiles when you pass by in the morning. And just as important is being open to new connections. Even if we're no longer young, aging sometimes makes people close off. After being let down a few times, after unanswered calls, after friendships end without closure, some folks stop opening their hearts. They say, "I have enough friends. Who wants to start over at this age? Better to be alone than hurt again." But in Buddhist psychology, this kind of thinking is just another form of clinging. We fear being hurt again, so we shrink back. But that shrinking, it only deepens the loneliness we were trying to avoid. There's a saying from the ancients, "When someone comes, they are a guest. When they leave, they are a lesson." If we saw every connection as a short journey through life, we'd understand. Each person enters our path for a reason. Some come to teach us love. Some come to teach us letting go. And here's the beautiful part. Just because someone left doesn't mean the connection was meaningless. In fact, it's knowing that the goodbye was coming that makes every shared moment more precious. A former student once told me, "Teacher, my best friend isn't my best friend anymore. But every time I cook the meal we used to love, I still hear their laughter in my mind. Not to feel sad, but to smile." That's the sign of a heart that's grown wiser. Not holding on through action, but holding on through gratitude. Grateful they walked with us, even if only for a while. Grateful they made us laugh, even if they're no longer here. Life is like a long train ride. Some people get on at the first stop. Some join halfway through. And eventually, everyone gets off at some station. If you keep staring out the window after someone's left, you'll miss the one still sitting beside you. And maybe they need your smile today. So, if today you feel a little emptier because someone's gone, let your heart soften. Their absence doesn't mean you're not enough. They didn't leave because you weren't worthy. They showed up when you needed them. And now, maybe it's time for you to walk with someone new, or even just walk with yourself. No one walks beside us for our entire life, but someone always comes if we stay open. That's why every morning you wake up, every breath you still get to take, is a quiet invitation, an invitation to return to yourself, to love again, even if it's just asking the local grocer how they're doing, to look around and say thank you to those who haven't left. And when you live with gratitude and an open heart, loneliness stops feeling like punishment. It becomes a pause, a sacred stillness, before something new arrives at your door. 4. You might be forgotten, but that doesn't mean you're meaningless. There's a quiet question many older people carry with them every day. It's not, "How much longer do I have?" but rather, "When I'm gone, will anyone even remember me?" It sounds a little sad, but it's real. And sometimes, it's that very question, not wrinkles or illness, that makes people fear growing old the most. We all want to be remembered. Some dream of writing a memoir. Some hope their photo will sit on an altar or their name will still be mentioned at family gatherings. But time keeps moving. What was once your entire life, a home you built from nothing, a job you poured your soul into, a story you've told over and over again, it all slowly fades. Your kids get busy, friends scatter, and the world just keeps spinning. It doesn't pause for even a second to ask, "Are you okay today?" And the forgetting, it's not always out of cruelty. Sometimes it's just the natural rhythm of life. In the Anatalakkhana Sutta, the Buddha taught, there is no permanent self to cling to. All things arise and pass away, like clouds moving across a mountain. We are not names carved in stone. We are like a scent drifting through a room light. Delicate, impossible to grasp. And yet, sometimes it's that scent that people remember most. A wise Zen teacher in Oregon once told a story about a young student who asked, "Master, when you die, will anyone still remember you?" The teacher smiled and asked, "Do you remember the name of the first person who taught you how to love?" The boy went silent. And yet, the teacher said, "You still know how to love. That is enough. People won't remember every name that ever touched their life, but they'll remember the feeling that person left behind." A teacher doesn't need a student to recall their name after 30 years. As long as that student, now grown, still believes in themselves. A father doesn't need his child to remember every word he said. As long as that child lives with kindness and courage, and someday that child will also be gone. But the ripple, that touch of goodness, keeps moving outward. There's a beautiful image in Buddhism. One candle can light 1,000 others without losing its own flame. That candle is you. If you've ever lit someone's path with a kind word, a silent act of care, a quiet presence in a storm, you are not meaningless. You've left behind light. No statue needs to be built in your name. You've already done what matters most. You lived with loving awareness. A 78-year-old man once shared during a winter retreat in New Mexico, "I used to manage hundreds of employees. Now that I'm retired, hardly anyone remembers me. But yesterday, I was reading with my granddaughter. She looked up and said, 'Grandpa, you feel warm like sunlight.' And that was enough." Isn't that the most precious kind of remembrance? You're not being forgotten. You've simply stepped out of the role or the name you once had. You've become part of something deeper, like the soil beneath a tree, unseen, but holding up life. And sometimes that quiet invisibility, that letting go of identity, is wisdom itself. You don't need to be somebody. You just need to be honest, present, and kind. Your legacy isn't in a framed photo. It lives in how people speak more gently after meeting you. It lives in the tear someone sheds, not because you're gone, but because they remember something good you once did. It echoes in the laughter filling a kitchen you once cooked in. It lingers in a piece of advice someone still carries, even if they've forgotten who said it. If someone ever asks, "What did you leave behind for this world?" ask yourself, did I live kindly? Did I help someone suffer less even just once? If your answer is yes, you've left behind the only thing worth leaving, the seed of kindness. You may never be in the history books, but you'll be written into another kind of book, the quiet one inside the hearts of people you helped soften. And if someday you are forgotten, please don't be sad. Because Anatta, the idea of no self, doesn't mean you are nothing. It means you don't have to be somebody to be part of something beautiful. When you understand this, everything becomes lighter. You stop chasing recognition. You stop worrying about your legacy. You simply live, truthfully, gently, with love, in each passing moment. And one day, you'll smile, not because they remember your name, but because you know in your heart, you didn't waste this life. 5. You're not young anymore, and that's a blessing. There's a moment we all face sooner or later. It's when you look in the mirror, and the person looking back doesn't quite resemble the you from 10 years ago. Your skin isn't as smooth. Your eyes don't sparkle like they used to. And your hair, no matter how often you dye, it still whispers the truth. Time has passed through here. And then, quietly inside, a voice says, I'm really getting old. Growing older isn't something society makes easy. Every billboard screams about staying forever young. Television shows glorify beauty and youth as success. Even compliments, wow, you look so young, often carry the message that youth is the ultimate praise. So many people, especially women, start hiding their age. They cover their gray hairs. They mask the tiredness from sleepless nights. They try not to look old. But you know what? Buddhism sees aging in a very different light. Not as a burden, but as a rare and beautiful blessing. During a retreat in Vermont, an older woman once said to the teacher, I don't feel beautiful anymore. My skin is wrinkled. My eyes are dull. I look in the mirror and don't recognize myself. The teacher didn't answer right away. Instead, he took her outside to a garden. There stood an old pine tree, rough bark, twisted branches, parts of it peeling with age. He pointed and asked, Do you think this tree is beautiful? She paused. Not in the usual sense, she said, but there's something still solid about it, a different kind of beauty. He nodded. Exactly. The beauty of having endured, of wisdom, of presence. It's not flashy, but it draws people close just like you. Right now, youth might be dazzling, but only age brings calmness, compassion, and that quiet gaze that's seen life deeply. Beauty doesn't live on your skin. It lives in the way you listen without interrupting, in the way you sit with someone in pain without trying to fix them, in how you know when to speak and when to simply hold someone's hand. When we're young, we shine, but as we age, we learn to help others shine, and that is the truest kind of light. The Buddha once said in the Dhammapada, it's not age that makes one wise, but living with integrity, mindfulness, and compassion, that's what makes a true elder. Age doesn't automatically make us worthy of respect, but if we use these years to grow understanding, kindness, and the ability to let go, we become the kind of person others naturally lean on, like an old tree giving shade to those who come after. One man in his 70s once shared at a retreat in Boston. Back then, when I entered a room, people noticed. Now I walk in, and no one even looks. But the other day, my little granddaughter hugged me and said, Grandpa, you make me feel safe. And that's when I realized, I'm no longer someone people admire. I'm someone they find peace with. And that's enough. You don't need to look younger. You just need to be fully present in your age and let your years speak for you. Every wrinkle holds time. Every silver strand is a lesson learned not from books, but from tears, loss, love, and healing. Don't hide your age. Wear it like a robe of wisdom, like a monk putting on his robe not to show off, but as a reminder to himself and others. I've walked a long journey, and I'm still learning how to live deeply every single day. In Buddhism, beauty doesn't come from form. It comes from a quiet mind. When an older person walks into a room with gentle eyes, a soft smile, and steady steps, people naturally feel at ease. That kind of beauty doesn't come from makeup. It doesn't come from anti-aging creams. It comes from within, shaped by time, nourished by compassion, and rooted in mindfulness. So if today you look in the mirror and see someone who's getting old, don't look away. Look closer. See the strength behind those eyes. See the hands that once held children, wiped tears, offered love, and are still reaching out to help someone today. Age doesn't take your beauty. It transforms it into something deeper, more enduring, even sacred. And if someone says, "You're getting old," just smile. Because only those who've lived deeply, long enough, and with enough awareness get the honor of being called old in the most beautiful sense. 6. Growing old is when you become your own greatest teacher. There's something strange you only begin to notice if you've lived long enough and quietly enough. When we're young, we live surrounded by voices, advice from parents, lessons from teachers, expectations from society, whispers from friends, and even the noise inside our own head. All those voices make our mind a noisy place, constantly chasing some version of who we think we should be. But then, at a certain age, something starts to shift. A kind of silence begins to show up. Not a lonely silence, but a stillness that comes from a maturing heart. You stop needing so much advice. You stop chasing recognition. You stop comparing yourself to everyone else. And in that stillness, you begin to hear something new. Your own voice. For the first time, you get the chance to become the teacher of your own soul. An elderly lay practitioner once shared during a long retreat, "All my life I lived to fulfill others' roles, a good husband, a good father, a reliable worker. But it wasn't until I retired and lived alone that I finally sat down and asked myself, who am I when I'm not playing any of those roles?" It's not an easy question, but you know what? You don't need to rush to answer it, because aging is no longer about racing ahead. It's about sitting down, reflecting, and understanding gently, patiently. The Buddha called this turning the light inward. Instead of constantly shining your awareness outward, you begin to bring it back to yourself. And in Buddhism, there's no better time to do that than when the heart is ripe and life has grown quiet. When we're young, we learn to understand the world. When we're older, we learn to understand ourselves. A woman in her 70s once said that she used to fear the silence of being alone. She'd leave the television on all day just for the background noise. She'd clean constantly just to avoid the emptiness. But through meditation, she slowly learned how to sit quietly with herself. And one afternoon, in a sunlit window, she found herself in tears. Not from sadness, but because for the first time ever, she felt close to herself. "I wasn't doing anything," she said, "but I felt so full, so complete." That is the gift of aging. When you stop trying to become someone, you finally have the space to return to yourself. And in that return, you begin to see the past more clearly, not with regret, but with understanding. You start to understand why certain pain happened, why you reacted the way you did, why some relationships ended, and it no longer makes you bitter. In the Samyutta Nikaya, the Buddha said, "One who contemplates within follows their own inner path and is no longer swept away by praise or blame from the world." Growing older is your chance to walk that inner path. You don't need a guru. You don't need the spotlight. All you need is honesty and the courage to meet yourself. When we're young, many of us fear being alone because silence can feel like emptiness. But if you're patient with yourself, you'll discover something beneath that silence. A light, the light of understanding. You begin to realize that within you is the wisdom of every year you've lived. It's not in your degrees, not in your job title. It's in your ability to listen, to pause, to forgive, and to let go when the time is right. Eventually, you understand. Peace doesn't come from having all the answers. It comes when the questions stop pulling you in every direction. You don't need to be successful anymore. You just need to be truthful. Truthful about what you feel. Truthful about the wounds that haven't healed. Truthful about what you really need, not what others expect of you. And in that truthfulness, you become the kindest teacher you've ever had. Not strict, not judgmental, not rushed, just present, patient, gentle, mindful. You've walked a long road. Now, let yourself sit down, softly, peacefully, and listen to the voice of your own heart, the one you've ignored for far too long. Because not everyone gets this privilege to live long enough to become their own best friend and their own wise teacher. And if you're in that chapter now, congratulations. You're living one of the deepest parts of being human. So, when you look back at the 6 lessons we've explored, maybe you'll begin to see aging differently. Things that once seemed like losses, like a weakening body, loved ones leaving, fading beauty, or even being forgotten, aren't really losses. They're transformations from the outside to the inside, from chasing approval to finding peace within, from needing the world to see you to seeing yourself with compassion. And if you've made it this far in the journey, you've probably realized something profound. Getting old isn't the end of the story. It's just a new chapter, a quieter one, yes, but one filled with deeper meaning. In the stillness, life actually speaks more clearly than ever. Every wrinkle, every gray hair, every goodbye is an invitation to return, to listen, to live truthfully. So, if there's one message to carry with you after this video, let it be this. You're not fading away as you grow older. You're going inward, deeper, brighter, freer. If something in today's reflection touched a quiet corner in your heart, please hit subscribe to Buddhism Seeds. Join us on this journey of awakening with more mindful, soul-nourishing videos to come. Like, share, and leave a comment below, because your words might just be the light someone else needs to get through a difficult day. We'll meet again soon, in peace, in understanding, and in deep gratitude for still being here, to live fully, honestly, and awake.